has now been around for 3 seasons, and coaches everywhere are saving time and being more efficient when it comes to scout cards. Coach Robinson from Texas says, "The thing I most enjoy is the ease of access to all the scout cards and how I can draw on them if I need to make any changes. Every coach that uses it says that it is so great to use. If you and your staff are tired of the old ways of preparing and using scout cards, check out thecoachpad.com to start enjoying Scout Team and making the 2023 season better than ever."
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. Today we have a great strength and conditioning coach. He is the head strength and conditioning coach at Valdosta State University, Coach Lonnie Maddox. Coach, how are you doing?
Pretty good, Coach. Pretty good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Doing good. It was good talking to you before we get started. Like I said, we got this set up pretty quickly. So, but I mean, for people who don't know, and like I said, I want to shed more light on the strength and conditioning world because I think that a lot of you do a lot of good things, and it's evolved a lot over the past couple of years. How did you end up as a strength and conditioning coach there at Valdosta?
Well, I can take you back through my entire journey. I started out at my alma mater, man. You know, just taking an interest in athletics. I've always been around athletics my entire life. So athletics is really all I've ever known. Of course, you know, a lot of us had aspirations of potentially going to the NFL or NBA. But, you know, once you get out of high school and into college, you start to realize that everybody was the man where they were. So, you know, you end up being humbled by that. But um, after graduation, you know, I had a couple of talks with my mentor, Coach Richard Shaughnessy, and he allowed me to come in and intern with him at my alma mater in 2014 and 15. I was actually pursuing my master's in exercise science at AUM at the time, so I was living in Montgomery, which is about 45 minutes to an hour away from Troy. So I was driving back and forth every day, doing that. And then once I graduated, I still didn't really have a job. So you know, I always wanted to be a strength conditioning coach on the collegiate level. So I took a job up in Chantilly, Virginia at D1 Sports Training and Therapy up around the Washington, D.C. area. So I was there for about 6 months. You know, I wasn't really happy doing that because I wanted to be in the collegiate setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I left there, man. Left there and went to the University of South Carolina in 2016, which was Coach Will Muschamp's first year. And his head strength coach, Coach Dillman, who's a mentor of mine. I love him to death. Also, his associate director, David Feely, who's one of my mentors as well. Those guys, man, they took me in as an intern. I was an older intern. I was 30 years old at the time. But, you know, I had my master's, had my CSCS, USAW, all that good stuff. And I felt like I needed another internship, particularly in the SEC, to, you know, help me out. So after spending the season of 2016 with them, left there. I still didn't have a job, man. You know, I had a couple of interviews here and there, but nobody's going to really hire you if you don't have any paid experience or if you haven't been a graduate assistant. A lot of times in this profession. So that's one thing I missed out on. You know, having an intern, and I never was a GA because I, you know, already had my master's and all, and didn't want to go that route and be a GA and get another master's degree. So man, it got to a point where, you know, I got a little discouraged. And I feel like I put in a lot of work. We're back to get another degree, and I'm trying to raise a small child, you know, alongside my fiance, who's my wife now. And I thought about going to physical therapy school, man. I was going to get ready to register for physical therapy school over at Alabama State, a school in Alabama. And right before, you know, making that decision to really go for it, I got an email from Fred McNair, who's the head football coach at Alcorn State University in Mississippi. So took that interview on. It was on a Monday when he sent me the email, and I actually had to drive to Mississippi for the interview on Wednesday. So went over to Mississippi from Georgia, and you know, man, got there, presented my portfolio, talked about, you know, how we would do things with football, and the athletic director offered me the job. I was probably there about 30, 45 minutes, and you know, he offered me the job, and I took it. You know, that was probably one of the most shocking things that ever happened in my life, to go from an intern to a Division I head football coach. Not football coach, I'm sorry, head strength and conditioning coach right off the bat. But you know, I'm grateful, man. It was a really good experience over at Alcorn. I was there 3.5 years. Left there in the middle of COVID. You know, I was sitting around with my wife, and we were just talking. During COVID, we had to stay in the house, and it was around the summertime. And so I saw the job come open at Valdosta State. And, I really didn't think Valdosta State would hire me. I'm just going to be flat out honest. It's a great place. I've known about Valdosta State pretty much my entire life and how dominant they've been in football on the Division II level, as well as other sports. It's a very, very competitive place, man. And so I applied for the job, and I really didn't think I would have a shot, even to interview. But, luckily I got an interview and went through the rounds of interviews, and I ended up here, man. I ended up here. This is my 3rd year here. The summer will start my 4th year. But, man, it's been an amazing experience, man. I have a good group of GAs. We have really good coaches here that pretty much allow us to do our own thing with their sports as long as we fill them in on what's going on. Our athletic training staff is phenomenal. Our athletic director is probably one of, if not the best athletic director to ever live. And I love the way he runs our athletic department. He trusts his coaches, but he's very, very strict on what he wants. And that's what you have to respect about it. So
Okay.
yeah, that's pretty much my journey, man.
Now a couple things like I said, I had a list of stuff as I did some research, and now one of the things I noticed, and because you mentioned being an intern and not GA, but you have GAs and interns. One thing I noticed as I was scrolling down your Twitter and your Instagram and other things, I saw you were making your GAs present on a variety of things. I think Pylos was one of them, speed velocity or something along those lines.
Yeah.
What is the philosophy behind having them do that in such a small setting? Because like I said, there's only a handful of you in that room. What is
Right.
the philosophy behind having your GAs and your interns present to each other?
Oh man, to me, it's just a thing in regards to like professional development. These kids are exercise science majors, and strength and conditioning, it changes, man. It changes every year. So a lot of people are going more towards velocity-based training. And so we wanted them to do some research on that. They presented to us and how they would, if we gave them a certain sport, how would they implement the velocity-based training? Also, plyometrics is a big deal. I'm a big plyometric guy myself, you know. And so I wanted them to present on plyometrics and different forms of plyos and how they would do things in their program. And I think another one was block periodization. Block periodization, I don't think I had much knowledge on block periodization, and how it was different from linear and undulating, or what things are the same in each. But that idea was the kid himself.
Okay.
And he did a really good job on presenting on block periodization, man. And it also helps to give your staff ideas as well. You know what I mean? You always need to continue to pursue education. That's just what I believe in strength and conditioning. Because like I said, man, everything changes year in and year out. So you have to get better because everyone else is getting better, whether they are Power 5 guys, D2 guys, NAIA guys, whatever. And always be ready because you're going to come across football coaches that are going to have some knowledge on this velocity-based training or plyometrics, things they've seen elsewhere, and they're probably going to ask you about it in the interview process.
Okay. Now you mentioned plyometrics there as well, and pylos have been one of the hot topics, I would say, in strength and conditioning the past couple of years. Because I remember I've helped in the weight room or run a weight room since I've started coaching, and jumping's always been a part of it. You can phrase it that way, but I think the term plyometrics has really popped up over the past several years, and the focus on it, especially like broad jumps, vertical jumps. Do you want to talk about kind of the transition you've seen and kind of why they're so important, both from the high school and college development level?
Yeah, plyos. A lot of us now, a lot of people think about jumping vertically, which is fine, is necessary in certain sports, especially like a center fielder in baseball, or wide receiver, DB going up for a jump ball. But you also got to realize that plyometrics kind of helps with your speed mechanics, sprint mechanics. And one big thing about plyometrics is decreasing ground contact time. Not being on the ground for too long. And that's one thing that plyometrics kind of enforce. And we like to do a lot of horizontal plyometrics, which we feel like, transfer over to speed training because you have to move horizontally. I mean, of course, you have to move laterally too and change the direction deal. But we focus on that component, man. Decreasing ground contact time and your rate of force development in a horizontal fashion.
Okay. And then the other thing I noticed, like when I was going through your stuff, is on top of all the plyometrics you do, and like I said, again, that's a big focus right now. What I've also noticed you do a lot of band work.
Oh yeah, yes. Sir.
You want to talk about that real quick? Because like I said, I think that's all. Like, because I started my most recent season started introducing that with squat and bench, but I've seen you not only do it with air, but there's a variety of exercises that you have added the band to
right.
help enhance your athletes.
So with the bands, man, you can do tons of things. A lot of people think when you come into a weight room, it's all pushing heavy free weights all day, every day. I mean, the free weights are really, really good in terms of like increasing joint stabilization, which you need in a football game. The more your joints can withstand contact, the better. It's going to help with keeping your kids healthy. So we like to use bands for that reason. For a lot of rotary stability stuff. We have this thing what we call band clams, which helps with your hip abductors, and hopefully trying to increase your lateral strength and your gluteus medius and your TFL and all that. We also use it for things like band face pulls, because one of my issues that I've had over the years is AC joint issues. So that's another reason why I implemented a lot of the band face pulls. We also use our bands for plyometric training. We have what I like to call band resisted squat jumps, where we don't have a Vertimax machine, right? Where you put the resistance around your hips, you step on this platform and jump against the resistance. So I'm real big on what we call ingenuity, trying to get things done with the limited resources that you have. So what we do is we take a 3/4 inch band, which is purple. We put it over one shoulder, right? And we put it over the other shoulder and put it under the beams here and put a dumbbell in hand. So it gives you the same effect that you would on the Vertimax machine. You know what I mean? And in turn will help you with your vertical jump max and things of that nature.
Okay. Now, continue with the bands. Obviously, a lot of high schools don't have the resources that you have, just like you don't necessarily have the resources maybe a Power 5 SCEC school has.
Right.
And you mentioned Ingenuity there, but most high schools that I've been at now have bands. Right. Like that I mean, at 80, because you can buy them in bulk for a reasonable price, where buying a whole new rack or said dumbbells gets pretty dang expensive, if we're being honest.
Right.
If you had to recommend like 2 or 3 things to high school coaches, because that's the majority of my audience, what 2 or 3 band related exercises would you relate to help developing the student athlete at the high school level? Because obviously our development's a little different than yours. Where they're at physically, nutritionally, and all that. But what do you kind of recommend just broadly for high school coaches band wise?
I would definitely recommend this exercise called band TKE. I don't know if have you ever heard of that one?
No, I've not.
Band terminal knee extension is what it's called. So, in football and other sports, you have a big risk of like ACL tears and things of that nature, right? So with the band TKE, it allows your body to. What happens with a ACL tear is like you have a shear force, right, from your femur to your tibia, and it slides shear force like this here, right? And that's how a lot of the ACL tears occur, with non-contact injuries, even contact injuries. So the band TKE kind of mimics that shear motion a little bit and helps your quadriceps get used to that, which in turn will hopefully reduce the likelihood of that ACL injury occurring. So that's one of the main ones that I would really recommend. Another one would be, band internal external rotation for your rotator cuff, especially for quarterbacks, pitchers. I would probably implement that one. Well, recommend that one for high school coaches. And probably another one would be probably band palate twist for like rotational power. Just to enhance your core just a little bit. Probably those 3.
Okay. Yep. No, that's like I said, I'm always looking for ideas. And like I said, again, we're at a different stage than you guys are, or nutritionally, resource wise. But again, everybody has access to bands. Now now here's I want to ask you, because this is a pet peeve of mine, and you mentioned the sport in yours, and they were lifting. That's we had delay hours today because they were actually coming and lift, which made me really happy. Do you want to talk about baseball and lifting real quick? Because I have dealt with plenty of baseball players and baseball high school coaches who are anti weight room.
Oh yeah,
especially during the season,
Mhm.
because they're worried about injury. But then I see people like Arkansas's baseball strength coach who does fantastic. They're benching the day before a game,
Right.
or like you said, you guys got a game tomorrow in Tampa, and they're coming in getting work in. Do you want to talk about baseball and weight room, especially weight room in season?
Right. So, baseball teams have maybe 5, 6 games a week sometimes, especially if they got like a 3-game series with 2 different teams in 1 week. So they're pretty much, not going to be in the weight room that much. But I learned from Coach Billy Anderson, who's the head baseball strength coach at the University of South Carolina. We also worked with him alongside, the Gamecocks football team. And Coach Billy Anderson, his guys would lift in season. He told me there's nothing wrong with it. And this man has won 2 College World Series. So I respect any and everything that he says about strength and conditioning. And, they bench press. So our guys here, they still lift as well. You're going to run across coaches who are anti-lifting. Not just baseball, man. You're going to have some basketball coaches that feel that same way. You're also going to have some football coaches that feel that way once the playoffs come around. I've dealt with all this stuff before, man. And I know exactly what you mean. So our baseball coach, he allows me to do my thing with our guys. And I told him, I was like, well, coach, I need at least 1 to 2 times a week with the guys, if I can get it. If I can get 1, that's fine. So with us, we do a little bit of lifting, but a lot of our stuff is geared towards shoulder mobility, rotary stability, exercises, rotational power exercises, things that you're going to see in a game. Like it's going to mimic the swing, mimic the pitching, band overhead throws or band reverse overhead throws, just to work on that rotator cuff because it slows down the throwing motion. So you want to do a lot of that stuff in season, and we're going to do a lot of stretching, for your quads, hamstrings, a lot of foam rolling the triceps, biceps, chest. So they're not going to do a lot of heavy lifting. They may come in and do, I'll probably say no more than 5 exercises, but the rest is going to be geared towards mobility and just stretching. And I feel like baseball players should lift in season. I feel like every sport should lift in season. That's something that I always stand on. Because it helps, man. And then as long as you got the backing of your athletic training staff, then you can go for it. But you have to have them to back you on it.
Perfect, coach. Like I said, that's always been, and I get you. I've had basketball coaches too, and everybody's got a different philosophy. But like I said, when I look at successful programs, they lift in season. Like I've taught with college bowlers, and they had a lifting program. So like that's where when I get, I'm not gonna say arguments, but disagreements with other high school coaches that I've worked with. Like if a bowling program has a lifting program in season, every program probably has a lifting program in season. That's what I tell kids all the time. Like, no matter what sport you play in college, you're probably going to have some sort of lifting program. But now the other thing I like, there's a couple other things I want to hit on. One, I've seen the abbreviation a lot looking through your stuff, and I'm not sure 100% what it means, but I like dog training, dog, I think lifter of the week. Like, do you want to talk about what that is? Because I'm just from a curiosity from my standpoint.
Oh yeah, the dog training is 3 core values from our head football coach.
Okay.
Of course, in strength and conditioning, you're gonna have your own core values, but I always tell any young strength coach, you always adapt what your head coach wants. So that's dog for us means discipline, obedience, and grit. So that's why we call it, dog training. Dog training is pretty much our form of mat drills that we do, for our football team. But the dog of the week thing, I adopted that for the weight room. So it's the athlete who's displayed discipline, obedience, and grit, and pretty much had a solid week, man. In the weight room, coming in, having great energy, trying to get through the entire lift, keeping his teammates motivated because it gets hard. I'm telling you, it gets hard when you're lifting and doing mat drills. You know what I mean? And so that's where that came from. It's from our head football coach.
Now, I also want to build off that. You mentioned mat drills there. I mean, from your time and initially interning to now, how have mat drills really evolved? Because like I obviously I watch videos, like Colorado obviously with their big social media output will show some stuff.
Right.
Like everybody like shows their winter workout videos and the mat drills. But in your opinion, how have they evolved, or have they even evolved since you started doing this? Over and if there has been an evolution, has there been one that has helped enhance athletes? I'll phrase it that way.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, man, and a lot of strength coaches may feel the same way that I feel, or they may not. Initially, I wasn't a fan of mat drills because I feel like a lot of the drills that coaches wanted to put together didn't really transfer over to anything that's going to be needed in practice or games. But I think it has evolved. At my old school, my head football coach allowed me to put the entire mat drill together. So we did a lot of like speed enhancement drills, plyometrics, but we had to monitor how intense it was, you know what I mean? And monitor the volume in the mat drill. So it would go from like 5 minutes to maybe 3 minutes, depending on what we're doing and how intense it was. Here, it's the same thing, man. Our coach, he talks to me, keeps me in the loop. And, he gets my ideas on what I want to do with mat drills, but we also do other things to where we feel like it helps bring out, a level of mental toughness in kids, which is what I'm all about too. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, but I feel like a lot of the mat drills need to be sensible, and it needs to go, and you need to have drills that are gonna help enhance the performance, so to speak. With football players, like change the direction stuff, working on their perceptual cognitive ability, speed improvement drills, which is going to help them get faster, or speed resistance, like using the harness, using chains, using the prowlers. And that's what we do here at Valdosta State. So I think they have evolved, man, because a lot more strength coaches are getting involved, and head coaches are allowing them to have a say-so in a lot of the drills.
Okay. Now, I mean, two other questions I have for you is one, I saw that I can't remember if it's your account or strength account, because I was looking at both, and it showed your football profile template that you were putting together.
Right.
I thought that was very interesting, especially as I was looking at it. And I mean, obviously you're doing it on Excel, which is not surprising, as most schools do, but the kind of, how do I want to phrase this? Both the metrics that you look at and, what was the other? There's you had your metrics at the top, and I forget what your bottom was. Is some sort of grading system. You want to talk about like what goes into that whole sheet kind of for you guys?
Okay. Yeah. So I think the most recent one that I posted was our developmental group from the season. And what was on there was the kids' height, weight, their our training variables, which included the bench press, back squat, and power clean. And also I think the vertical and broad jump, which is what we tested our developmental group on. So you have your initial testing, then 6 weeks out, you test again, and it shows the change, the change in each variable. And then we have a measuring scale, which we call D.O.G rating, right? Discipline, obedience, and grit rating. So I got that idea from one of my graduate assistants. He came up with that. So it was a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the best number that you can get. So with me, I'm a very strict guy. I feel like nobody's going to get above a 3 on anything right now. And so if you get a 3, that means that you're doing it. And I had already explained that to our head football coach. I showed him the design of the template, and he was all for it. And so if you get a 3, man, that means you're doing really well by me. Because I feel like a lot of these guys hadn't been in the program long enough to see how things are done, because our coaching staff is relatively new. They've only been here a year. So over time, I'll probably get somebody up to that 4 range, but I don't know about a 5 ever. I don't care if it's a senior, junior, all conference, anything. I don't care. But so we measure them on their ability to show discipline, obedience, and grit. we also grade them on their urgency level with the strength and conditioning staff, the level of buy-in that we think that they're giving us. And did I say urgency level already?
Yes, sir.
Because urgency is a big thing for me, man. I feel like a lot of kids lack urgency. A lot of them, man. Even my son. My son's 9 years old. He's not the most urgent person in the world either. And that's one thing I can't stand for somebody to lack urgency. But those are the things that we grade these kids on. And so we put our comments in the box. And at the end of the season, when I present everything to the football coaching staff, I let them know exactly how I feel about each and every kid. And so that's really how, we determine who's going to go into the spring, who we're going to invite back into the spring. So that's why I'm real happy about, the relationship that I have, with our football coaches. Every football coach that I've worked for has been really good and, allowing me to help them out, to see who really belongs in our program and who doesn't, who can handle the dog training, who can handle strength and conditioning, and who's just going to be right for the program as young men.
Okay. Now, just out of curiosity, how long does that meeting usually take? Like, because because like when you're talking college athletics, I don't care if it's D1 through D3. When you eat, what are your scholarship, non-scholarship? I mean, you're looking at a roster of 100 or more.
Right.
I mean, how long do you typically spend on a kid, and how long is that just one meeting, or is it multiple meetings over multiple days? How does that process work for you?
So if it's the entire team, man, it lasts for about 2 days. It lasts about 2 days because strength and conditioning, my template and just explaining everything for each kid, it takes a while.
Yeah.
And then you have to factor in the coaches have their own deal that they do too. So we're all in the meeting, man. It lasts about 2 days. But the developmental group is about 30 to 35 guys, so it probably lasts maybe a couple of hours, I'll say.
Okay.
My presentation.
Okay, just curious. Like I said, I thought it was interesting how you said it. Like I've seen something similar to that. Like my buddy at a school nearby has something similar for grading and testing and how his saves up, but he doesn't have the dog grading aspect. And I just liked how your setup was there. The actual last question I have for you, because I love asking strength coaches this, because like some will have a bunch, some will have like one, and I saw you posted a book you were looking at reading that you were interested in reading. I'm always curious, like if you had to pick like just a handful of books for like as a recommendation for high school, especially like high school coaches who are, I mean, again, most high school coaches are not certified like you are.
Right.
But they're still in charge of the weight room and they're still trying to develop athletes. And it doesn't matter if it's football, baseball, basketball, a conglomerate of us. What would you recommend them reading so they can better develop their student athletes? Because like I said, Joey gave me a couple, Tommy gave me a couple things here and there, but like for you personally, has there any books that have been like an impact on you that were like, okay, here's a good baseline, or here's something that made a great impact on me for maybe a high school, whether it be strength coach or just high school assistant to look at?
I'll give you 3 of them, man. My first one probably would be Conscious Coaching by Brett Bartholomew. It just talks about, creating a culture in the weight room, different ways to get buy-in from student athletes. The second one would probably be Speed Strength. Just talks about, the biomechanics of sprinting, push-based exercises that you'll need to do, integrated drill sprint combos, things of that nature, which is really good, man. It's one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And this new one that I'm reading by Coach Aaron Wellman, who's the head strength coach at Indiana University. His book is called Complete Conditioning for Football. I'm only in chapter 3 now, man, but it's really, really good. Talks about movement prep prior to the lifts, your dynamic warm-up, your walking dynamic before sprint exercises, before practice. It also talks about, building buy-in as well. I feel like you should always read any type of book that talks about building a culture or creating buy-in, regardless of who it is. If it's a book about it, I think you need to at least look at it. You know what I mean? But those 3 are probably my favorite.
Who's the speed training book by?
It's by oh man, I can't remember the name. but I know Dr. Matt Rhea has. I can grab it for you right here.
Good.
Joel Smith. And Dr. Rhea, he has a couple of articles, chapters in it, I think. Some really good stuff.
Okay. Just like I said, that way we can help coaches find it if they want. And like I said, that's probably something I'll add to my Amazon list just there.
Yeah.
So, okay. Now, coaches, before we go, make sure you follow Coach on Twitter. They also have a strength and conditioning Twitter and Instagram that I know they probably post most of their stuff, I would say, on their Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there's some good stuff on there. So make sure you follow the Valdosta State Strength. Follow him on Twitter. Like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. Otherwise, that's been another episode of the Gap Down Backer Podcast.